The grades are in on all 32 teams. So what's the GPA of the silver and black? Plus, let's get to know wide receiver Jack Bech. That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 30th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of the Locked On Raider podcast YouTube page. So shout out to Ari. Great job. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, you know the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line is there for you at 707-654-4693. And as you can imagine, with all the results from the 2025 NFL draft, all 11 draft picks that the Raiders had, there's been plenty of feedback, calls, texts, even tweets. We'll get as much in as possible coming up as we close out the show in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll take a deep dive into second round pick, number 58 overall, Jack Bech, the wide receiver out of TCU. My guy, Steven Simcox, Locked On Horned Frogs. He'll join the show to talk all things Jack Bech. Let us know everything we need to know about him on the field, off the field. Plus, you'll get a few little sound bites from my guy, Ian Fitzsimmons from ESPN Radio as well. So, again, we'll deep dive into all things Jack Bech in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day. I'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And before I get into the news and notes, and I really want to get into some Raiders draft grades and the GPA that they have, got to give a big shout out to my road dog, Erica Zamora. It's really funny, man. She always says she's a victim of the NFL draft, which is hilarious because I'm talking about her birthday on a Raiders podcast. But it's funny because she always says I'm a victim of the NFL draft, that nobody remembers my birthday because after the draft, it's like, all right, now what did the teams look like? So grew up with the Zamoras. They're really fantastic people. Moms, pops, Daniel, Enrique, Monica, and of course Erica as well. And so I said, all right, I promise next year nobody's going to forget your birthday. So there you go. We'll give her a big happy birthday. She is the NFL draft victim, baby. So it is what it is, but happy birthday to her anyway. So jumping into the Raiders draft grades, this comes from Renee Bugner. He's an analytics guy on Twitter. He tweeted out 2025 NFL draft team grades. I've compiled 24 evaluations of the NFL draft and totaled the team grades, sorted by GPA for all 32 teams. I sorted the 24 evaluations by GPA as well, from left to right, thanks to all who gave out grades in each and every year. So the Raiders, we all believe that they did really well, right? So what was the overall GPA? And look, we understand what it is when it comes to grades on the draft. We don't really know for a couple years. We don't know if it's going to be a fantastic draft class until they actually get on the grass and show what they can do. But as this is what we do, right? A couple days after the draft, we start breaking it down. And actually, right after the draft got wrapped up, we started talking about different people out there that had their grades and were giving, the Raiders an A, B, C, whatever the case may be. So as I look at this, and there's a big chart out there of all 32 teams, but I'll just break it down until I get to the Raiders. Number 1, the Patriots came in. GPA was 3.67. The G-Men, the Giants, came in at number 2, right below the Patriots at 3.65, followed by the Seattle Seahawks at 3.63, the Chiefs at 3.49, the Eagles, Howie Roseman and company, at 3.46, and there's the Raiders, the number 6 team in the league out of all 32 teams. Again, just an analytics guy, just basing it off of 24 different outlets and their grades that they gave the Raiders a 3.44. The thing about this is 23 out of the 24 evaluations were either A+, A-, A, B+, B, or B-. Now, I said 23 out of 24. There was one from ProFootballNetwork.com that gave the Raiders a C. So across the board, 23 out of 24 gave the Raiders either some form of an A or some form of a B. And then Pro Football Network was like, no. We got to be a little different. We got to go with the C. For me, when I look at grades, especially when I look at 24 different ones, I like to go with, hey, what's the average, right? So if you're giving A+, A- B+, B, like they're a solid B, right? And I think that we would all agree when you look at what the Raiders were able to do on paper, I think a B is fair. right? I mean, you got a lot of guys that have an opportunity to be real-time difference makers. You got a lot of players, so you can fill a lot of holes. You got 11 draft picks. You only went into the draft with 9 guys or 9 selections. And you came away and filling some voids that you knew that you had, right? Including offensive line, wide receiver, obviously a home run hitter in Ashton Genty at the running back position. I mean, you've got multiple dudes, linebacker, right? You got a cornerback. You got a quarterback, right? Even though they came from the FCS, you got that as well. So you got a lot to like. So I think that a B is fair. And obviously that B could be even better if these guys pan out to be who I think they will be. I said it right after the draft. I said it on Monday's show. This draft felt very 2014-ish to me, where Reggie McKenzie really helped build the foundation. 6 out of those 8 players that were selected ended up being difference makers. If the Raiders can get that kind of production, 8 out of 11, 9 out of 11, even 7 out of 11 guys given big-time production for this team, I think that you're looking at a really good draft and a really good jumping off point for this team. So I'm sure you're wondering, well, who are the other outlets? Pro Football Network gave them a C. Well, there's Pro Football Focus, ESPN, The Ringer, CBS, NFL.com, Athlon, Sharp Football, SI, AP, Fox Sports, and others. But those are the kind of outlets that graded all the different draft classes, all 32 of them. So when it's all said and done, again, the Raiders came out with a 3.44, ranked 6th amongst 32 teams across the National Football League. I think that is pretty stinking cool. Also, a couple more nuggets I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Tuesday was Vic Tafur from The Athletic, his last day covering the Raiders. He tweeted out, "Today marks the end of a 15-year run covering the Raiders. I'm returning to the Bay Area and writing about the 49ers, The Athletic with Matt Barrows. Raiders players, coaches, and fans were never dull. And man, there were some stories. The beat is in great hands with Tashawn Reed. Thanks." That's from Vic Tafur. 15 years. That is a very long time to cover a team. And I think that Vic, as not being a Raider fan, was very fair. I know the first time that I ever got a chance to interview Vic, I was so excited because I knew he had been covering the Raiders for so long. He's got so many stories. So, if you ever read anything from Vic or talked to Vic or, heard any interviews with him and you follow him on Twitter at Vic Tafur, just give him a shout out, man. 15 years is a nice little run covering the silver and black. Now for The Athletic, it's all going to be about Tashawn Reed. Finally, here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, I wanted to get into a couple sounds when it comes to wide receiver Jack Bech. The first one is my guy, Ian Fitzsimmons, who I was actually supposed to have on the show, but he had something going on with the family. So I said, hey, man, don't worry about it. Go ahead and handle your business. We'll catch up later. Great dude. He is, I like to call him like the mayor of college football. He just knows his stuff really well. So whenever I really have something that I want to, get some good details on, I know Ian is that guy. So he was part of ESPN's draft coverage for ESPN Radio in Green Bay. And so immediately when Jack Bech was announced as the Raiders pick at number 58 overall, he had this great breakdown to say live on the air. I thought this was great. Here's Ian Fitzsimmons on Jack Bech immediately after he was selected by the Raiders.
Who has really been through it. Jack Bech, the wide receiver from TCU, goes to the Raiders at number 26. And Fitz, this is somebody who has really been through it with his family over the last year. Tell us this story.
Yeah, my brother recruited him when he was a coordinator in the SEC, trying to get him out of Louisiana. Bech stayed loyal to the boot, started his career at LSU. They really misused him at LSU, in my opinion, under the Orgeron regime. Goes to TCU and shines. And his family is remarkable, and if you don't know the story about his brother Tiger, who played wide receiver and was a returner at Princeton, his name was Tiger, and he was tragically killed in that terrorist attack the night before the Sugar Bowl on Bourbon Street. And man, Jack I had long conversations with him. He's just a remarkable, grounded young man, and as he told me, Tiger is on my pads every single day. I will take him out to every rep, every practice, every lift, every sprint, every push-up I do. My brother is on my pads. He's on my back. He is with me. And at the Senior Bowl, he shined. Absolutely shined. So for the Raiders, it used to be third and Renfro, right? Where you had 3rd and 4, you're going to Hunter Renfro. Jack Bech will fill that role and then some, because Mike T, to me, he's faster than Renfro. And when you have a guy that's a boot boy playing with that kind of passion and that kind of controlled anger, man, you're getting one hell of a player with the 26th overall pick in the second round, 58 overall.
So really good, quick, minute and a half right there from Ian Fitzsimmons on Jack Bech and what he brings to the table and, how he's out there and he's going to be playing not only for himself, but he's playing for his brother Tiger, who he lost in New Orleans on Bourbon Street for New Year's in that terrorist attack, as you heard Ian say. Well, Ian's really good friends with them. Ian's a boot boy. Jack Bech is a boot boy, meaning they're both from Louisiana. So immediately on Monday, he actually had him on his radio show, Amber and Ian. And again, I was going to tie all this together because, Ian was supposed to be on this show today, but I wasn't able to catch up with them. But he sent me the interview, and I thought this was just interesting to hear from Jack Bech, the wide receiver for the Raiders, just talking about what he can do with the team, just stuff on the field, just a small piece of the interview that he did with Ian Fitzsimmons on Monday on ESPN Radio.
When you look at the kind of offense that Chip Kelly runs, and you know that Pete Carroll is going to want to be a physical style offense, how do you fit in that scheme, that what Pete Carroll wants to do, what Chip Kelly wants to do?
All I know is I'm going to go out there and be a dog, no matter if that's me catching balls, me going crack safeties, knock them as hard as I can, linebackers, whatever it may be. I just can't wait to see the way they see me in the offense. And I just can't wait to get to work. I can't wait to stick my nose in the playbook, get as familiar as can be with that, and to get to work.
As far as your game going to a whole nother level, and this is what is most fascinating about you, Bech, is that you believe there's a whole nother level you can go to, especially with Tiger on your shoulders. How much better can you get?
Oh, head over heels better, day and night better. Especially to go be able to and learn from Coach Chris Beatty. I mean, he has so much knowledge of the game, and learn from Coach Pete Carroll and Coach Chip Kelly. I mean, I have so much to learn, both mentally and physically. I cannot wait to just grind and sharpen this double-edged sword each and every day. Just keep getting better and better and better, and just be the hardest working guy in the league.
So just getting you a little bit more familiar and just kind of letting you hear from him his own kind of a mindset and what he brings to the table. And trust and believe, I'll still have Ian on the show to really break it down because, again, he knows Jack Bech really well. But Jack played at TCU in Fort Worth, and he was a Horned Frog. So who else to get a little bit more information on Jack Bech? My guy, my brother, a guy I used to work with at ESPN Central Texas, Steven Simcox. He's the host of Locked On Horned Frogs, does a fantastic job. Segment number 2, you'll hear all his thoughts on wide receiver Jack Bech. We'll do that next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. With the NBA playoffs being here, FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you can place a $5 bet. You'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And FanDuel makes betting so easy. You can pick a favorite team. You could dive into player props, three-pointers, steals, assists, whatever the case may be. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. You could even do same-game parlays. You can mix and match multiple game parlays. There's a lot of different ways to get in on the action and have a whole lot of fun. And I don't know if you've noticed with the NBA playoffs, they are fun. Yeah, there's a blowout here or there, but man, it's physical, it's fun, it's competitive, it's something that you need to be a part of. And after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win really big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Heard what Ian Fitzsimmons had to say about TCU wide receiver Jack Bech, who ended up being the second-round pick of the Raiders at number 58 after GM John Spytek traded back multiple times. So, of course, got to do a deep dive, and I'm going to do a deep dive on every single one of these players that the Raiders have selected. We've done a lot of deep diving on Ashton Genty. We talked about the FCS guys on Tuesday. So now we got a deep dive into wide receiver Jack Bech. And Steven Simcox, he's the host of Locked On Horned Frogs, really good dude. He joined my radio show to talk about Jack Bech. And we started out real simple. It's just, who is Jack Bech on the field?
I think they put it best on the draft coverage when they said he's just a competitor. He's just a dude that gets out there and wants to play. So at LSU, he actually spent some time as a freshman playing tight end. He was in the slot a lot. And so when he transferred over, that was really my view of who he was. I thought he was a versatile player who would mainly play inside the formation. But last season, they had some injuries, They had a wide receiver suspended. And so to hear Sonny Dykes tell the story, right before the season opener against Stanford, they asked Josh Hoover, the quarterback, they said, hey, who do you want out there? Of the guys we have available, who do you want at outside wide receiver? And he immediately said Jack Bech. And he went on to have 136 yards against Stanford and had a go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. that put that game away, and he never gave up that job. I mean, he just took over from that point on, had over 1,000 yards receiving, was really good in contested catch situations. I mean, he's not a burner. Like, he's not a super straight line speed fast guy, but he's very quick. He can separate well. He's physical. He really buys into blocking. I mean, he'll block on the outside and get some room for running backs or other wide receivers on screens. He's a team player. I mean, I think through the draft process and obviously the tragedy with his family as well, we've seen a lot of the intangibles of just who he is and the character that he has. But I think at TCU he was a great leader last season. There were a couple kind of turning point games last season against Kansas. Later on in the year, they had a really close game against Cincinnati in the season finale, and he had big catches in those ball games. He just stepped up in big moments. So I don't want to narrow it down just to that. He's also a really good athlete and a good player, but I think you're getting a guy who loves football, who is willing to do whatever it takes for the team to win, and is also very talented and can win in one-on-one situations. I'm excited about him getting the opportunity to play under a great coach in Pete Carroll and to play for this organization in Vegas.
You know, you mentioned something that really stood out to me. You talked about his leadership and the fact that he was a leader there at TCU. How difficult is that to come in as a transfer and become a leader like he did?
Right. It's a big deal. And I think also his first season at TCU, he had some injuries. He only had 12 catches, so he wasn't super involved in the offense. And honestly, before the year, I was saying on the show, I was like, I think Savion Williams is going to be the main guy at that position. And Savion had a nice season and went on to get drafted as well. But Jack Bech, in my mind, was kind of like, maybe this guy could be an X factor if he's healthy and if he's available and they can figure out how to use him. Possibly he's another option for Josh Hoover. I had no idea he was going to become the number one guy on this offense from the receiver standpoint. And honestly, I mean, Josh put up great stats at the quarterback position, but you could make the argument he was the best player on the team last year. So to take that leadership role, one, being a transfer, I mean, he came over from LSU, which was his dream school. He's a Louisiana kid. Mm-hmm. It didn't exactly work out, and he kind of rolled with the punches. He got into a new environment, got into a new organization, and even despite those injuries and kind of those setbacks in year one, he still had that much respect among the team that, you know, when it came down to it this season, he was one of those vocal guys that was leading the charge. He had a knee injury in the season finale, and I don't think he would have played in the bowl game anyway, but he was doing his draft thing. He was doing his workouts, and, of course, obviously all that kind of happens remotely now, but he flew in to New Mexico just for that game, just for the New Mexico Bowl, and he was he was on the sidelines. He was very adamant in trying to coach up the young guys. He's one of those team guys that you have to be successful.
So for him, and we know about the story of his brother, the tragedy on New Year's in New Orleans, it's been well documented. How much do you think he's going to use that as fuel and fire and, you know, playing with a purpose? As he said, the Raiders aren't getting one player, they're getting two. They're getting Tiger as well, his brother. How much do you think he's going to use that as motivation and fire as he moves forward?
I think you saw a glimpse of it through the draft process. I didn't know how he would handle that. That's a life-altering moment. And, I mean, he and his family, they've just been so gracious about it. It's been so amazing how they've used it, as you said, kind of as motivation for his own life-changing event here in the NFL draft. But you saw in the Senior Bowl, I mean, he had a great practice week. He ended up being MVP of that game. That was a very emotional moment. I definitely think he's playing for his brother. I think he's playing for his mom and dad, and he understands, like, this is a great opportunity he's been given. Life is a fragile thing. He's talked about through this process, like, just getting some more perspective. And he was already a guy that I believe didn't really take things for granted and wanted to do his best. But I believe even more so now, you're seeing Jack Bech really step out and say, this is my mission in life, is to be great at this, to kind of carry my family's legacy in this way. And I don't think he sees it as a lot of pressure. I just think he sees it as an opportunity and as motivation to be the best player that he can be. So I think you're going to get outstanding effort from Jack Bech each and every week. That's one thing that I can pretty much guarantee. You know, a lot of the other things, we'll see how it shakes out. But as far as effort and energy and enthusiasm, he's going to bring that each and every time he steps out on the field in a Raider uniform.
You know, the thing about it is when it comes to wide receivers, a lot of them, and you mentioned it earlier, don't buy into blocking and being tough and going over the middle and possibly getting walloped. You know, he's the one who's laying the hits on some of these guys. What is it about him that really brings the toughness out in him, which is what he displays each and every time he's out there on the grass?
I think he just enjoys the physicality. I think he likes locking up with DBs. He doesn't mind being up in press coverage, or I guess defensive backs being in press coverage against him and using his hands to create separation. I feel like he enjoys that. That's probably, more advantageous for him with his size and with his ability. And as I said earlier, like he's kind of moved around a lot in his career. TCU used him in limited action at the slot position and as kind of an inline tight end at times. He played that same role at LSU. So he's not afraid to be physical and to mix it up. We'll see how the Raiders kind of see that, perceive that, and use that. But if they want to run, a screen on the outside, I doubt we'll see that as much as they did at TCU. But Jack Bech is the guy that's not afraid to go block somebody. If they want to run a running back off the edge, Jack Bech is not afraid to go get someone and get those extra yards. And, running after the catch, too. He was rarely a guy that went down on first contact, and it wasn't – his athleticism had something to do with it, but a lot of it was just his physicality. And if he got going and that momentum got going north and south, then he was tough to bring down because he would run through arm tackles and bounce off players and just keep his feet moving to get those extra yards.
Is there a nugget or two that you have on him that we might not know? Like I said, we know the backstory. We know what happened with his brother. But is there something that kind of stands out to you from his time at TCU that we don't know about?
I remember talking to Matt Masaka, who covers LSU for Locked On, and we were discussing actually a couple LSU transfers from this year, but almost immediately the first thing he brought up when we were talking was, man, Jack Bech is an amazing dude. And this was just as the TCU season was wrapping up. And, so happy for that kid. I think just everywhere he goes, people love his personality. They gravitate towards him. So people will see that on display. And as I said earlier, at least, according to the team, this year was kind of unplanned as far as what position he was going to play. He did some work at outside wide receiver, and I remember Sonny Dykes saying during fall camp that he showed some things and made some progress. But Eric McAllister, a transfer from Boise State, was supposed to be the dude. He was coming in, and he had a lot of hype around him. He had a nice season up in Idaho the year before. And just because of the circumstances, because of injuries, Jack got that chance. And, Eric ended up having a nice year as well. But honestly, Jack kind of took that spot and didn't relinquish it. And he's that kind of player. He's got that type of toughness and ability. So, he's someone that's willing to do whatever it takes to win. And I think that's the biggest thing that's going to show up every time that he's on the field for the Raiders.
So there's some really good stuff right there from Steven, again, the host of Locked On Horned Frogs. You want to find out more about Jack Bech or just TCU in general, I definitely encourage you to go check out his show. He's a really good dude. I've been rocking with Steven for a very long time. From my time back at ESPN Central Texas, he came in as an intern. He earned his way onto the payroll and has been grinding ever since. And so he does a really good job. I consider that dude like family. So if you do have some time and you want to check out something TCU related, I definitely encourage you to go check out Locked On Horned Frogs. So that was Steven Simcox with his breakdown of wide receiver Jack Bech, what he brings to the table on the field, who he is off the field, and he's obviously excited, as you could tell, for what he's going to be able to do this next adventure with the Raiders. We'll continue to deep dive on Jack Bech because trust and believe, I got a couple different outlets, a couple more people that I need to talk to about him, including Ian Fitzsimmons, who I mentioned before. Marty Smith from ESPN did a great feature on him as well. Going to get him on the show as well. So we're going to definitely do all the work that we need to know about Jack Bech, the second round pick. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts are next. 707-654-4693. We'll close out the show hearing from you. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor on the show, and that is Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and actually start building wealth. You can check out Monarch. You'll realize how much you spend on food delivery, right? You'll start to realize how you can budget smarter, how you can save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Manage money with your partner. That's smooth either as well. You can all use one. You can have all your accounts together, and it's less stressful, so you can figure it out quick, fast, and in a hurry. So right now, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL, it's all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL, it's all one word, for half off your first year. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. You have that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Not only do we have your calls and texts, we also have a tweet, and you can tweet at me at your boy Q, 254 or at Ari Produces. We'll definitely try to get it on the show. And this one comes from our guy, Hardcore Raider. You've heard me talk about him multiple times. He's a listener to the podcast and also listens to my radio show as well. He's on Twitter at Raider_Hardcore. So what's up, bro? Hope all is well. I've been thinking a lot of times we ask, what's the plan? This is one of the few times in my Raider fandom I honestly feel like I can see the plan. Also, one of the few times I feel like the coaching staff and GM's actions match their words. Hopefully, I'm not a prisoner of the moment, but I love the vision I see right now. Much respect, Raider Nation for life. That's Hardcore Raider. And you know what? I wanted to start off with that tweet because I echo it. I really do truly believe that we could see the plan. Like, I never knew what the plan was with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, and I got a lot of respect for Zig, but I never knew what the plan was. No one ever told me what the plan was, and I wasn't able to look at it and say, oh, I get it, right? Didn't understand what the plan was kind of understood what the plan was with Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco, but they never executed it, right? We saw some really good players. I feel like I know what Antonio Pierce wanted to do, but they didn't really have time to put together a real good plan, right? Just didn't really quite know what they were attempting to do or what they thought they were going to get accomplished in year one together. Here, it does feel like, okay, without them telling me what the plan is, by seeing their actions, I understand what the plan is, right? You went out and made the move for Geno Smith, the quarterback, right? A guy you have trust in, a guy you believe in, a guy you've won with, okay? So now you fix that spot for right now. Then you go out and get a big home run hitter like Ashton Genty, right? Before that, you go in free agency and you fill the void with some guys that are hungry, some guys that, you know, have been kind of slept on and probably just thrown away to the side and have something to prove. You go and make moves for those guys. Then you start bringing in some young talent in the draft, right? You fill some holes. You trade back, get a couple more guys. You see that they're establishing toughness. You see that they're establishing the culture. You see that they want to win, but also build to make this team really good. So you can see what the vision is, right? And it's funny because a little bit of it's similar to what Antonio Pierce wanted to do, be a very strong defensive-minded team, be able to run the rock, be very good at running the ball, but then also have quarterback play that can get the ball to the playmakers. And now they have more playmakers, and they have a competent quarterback that we feel can get the ball to who they need to get the ball to. So it does feel like, and I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment as well, I'm not trying to get too hyped over the Raiders draft class, but it does feel like they have a clear vision, and I think a lot of people, not just Raider Nation, are seeing what it is. So thanks for that tweet. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Chuck Raider in Austin, Texas. He's calling to talk about the draft, starting with getting Genty, one of the few blue-chip players, and also the rest of the way they navigated through the draft. Here he is, Chuck Raider in Austin, Texas.
Q, what's up, buddy? It's Chuck Raider over here in Austin, Texas, 512. Hey, love your coverage of the draft. Great draft. Getting Genty, one of the only blue-chip players of the draft. I mean, the last couple of drafts, I didn't think Telesco did a bad job at all. He was just collateral damage, like you said. But getting Genty, one of the few blue-chip players of this draft, was huge. Loading up on a couple O-linemen at the end of the third round, moving back, trading back. I mean, this is what a professional team is supposed to look like. This is what they do. And addressing some of the other needs in terms of wideout, in terms of D-tackle, in terms of corner. I mean, they really hit it out of the ballpark with this draft, I believe. I mean, we'll know in a few years, but it was a hell of a job by these guys. And I think it's just going to be more to come. And I think they're grooming Chip Kelly to take over after Carroll in a few years. But what a draft. And it wasn't a quarterback draft. Shadur Sanders, that was a joke. I mean, that guy's a better player than that. I don't understand that. It must have been because of all the baggage that he's going to bring. But I was hoping they were going to draft him when it got to the 4th and 5th round. You know, I mean, the value was there, but you got to take into account everything else that goes with it. All right, love the show, Q. You keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you, and I agree, man. Just like we were saying with Hardcore Raider, the team looked like they had a plan. They looked like that they knew what the overall class was going to be and how they wanted to go ahead and attack it, right? I thought they did a great job of executing and getting what they wanted. The thing for Shedeur, and I'm not trying to bring him up because he's not a Raider, but, you know, when someone calls and talks about him, I'll respond. But the thing for him is he's got the chance to go show everyone that they were wrong and prove to himself that he was right? It should give him all the fuel that he needs to achieve his ultimate goals, but that's up to him to do it, right? Nothing is given. You're a 5th-round pick. Right? Turn the cameras off and go out there and ball. Put your head down and ball. And if you do, then think good things can happen. If you don't, well, then we'll see what, you know, then everyone else was right about him. So that's on him. And you know, as long as he's got a team, he's got an opportunity. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Midwest Raider. Says, good morning, Raider Nation. It's Midwest Raider here. Want to chime in on the draft. I was not a fan of the 4th and 6th round draft picks, mainly the defensive tackle and quarterbacks. Think of Neil Farrell Jr. and Matthew Butler, which both were busts. I understand you most likely aren't going to find a key player in those rounds, but that is what I think of the draft is about, finding a gem in the rough, someone who outperforms projections. Raiders have big question marks with the linebacker and cornerback core, and there was some decent players still left on the draft board. Why not target some cornerbacks that have ball projection in college? You can't tell me defensive tackle and quarterback was a bigger need over linebacker and cornerback. Anyways, thanks for all that you do, Q. Love the draft as it's the future of the team and gives us enough to talk about all the way up to the start of the season. I hope this draft works out. Time will tell. Go Raiders. That's Midwest Raider. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate that. And that's the beauty of this show, right? You can text in, call in, and say, yeah, you know what? I wasn't really feeling a couple of those draft picks, and that's fine. I think that what the Raiders are going to try to do is try to make that defensive line the strongest part of their team, right? That's already the strength. Make it even stronger. Make it easier for linebackers. Make it easier for cornerbacks. And I think that they're looking for a certain type of guy, too. That's the thing. There's other guys that they could have targeted, but do they fit with what they want to do? And again, time will tell if they were good selections or not. Right? They can look good on paper. They can sound good. We can get excited by their name and their measurables and how much we think that they're going to project to be great. And they might not end up being worth the salt. Right? That's the beauty of the draft. Nobody really knows how it's going to play out. That's why when we talked about the grades in segment number 1, you take it with a grain of salt. Because, again, it's just projections. And we don't know how these guys are going to project. All we can do is say what we think. So I like the guys that they brought in. It feels like they all have a reason behind them. Like they have some edge to them, right? They're guys that are competitive. That's the other thing. Like they want guys that are going to be competitive. They want guys that are going to be tough as nails. And I think that if you go up and down that lineup of guys, all 11 selections that they had, all those dudes are tough as nails, right? And they're all guys that are competitive and want to change the culture of the Raiders and know what it's like to be in that culture. So again, it felt like that they had certain guys that they wanted to target and they went and got them. So even like Jack Bech, the 2nd round pick, tough as nails, right? I mean, again, that's just kind of how I look at it. But you know, only time will tell. So you could end up being right, and then you know you go back to the drawing board and say, well, maybe they missed here or there, but that's going to be the case with every team. All 32 teams, they're going to have guys that they love, and they're going to have guys that they miss out on. So thanks so much for that text. Fantastic stuff. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Cheese Grater Raider, calling to talk about Geno Smith and his expectations from him this season with the Silver and Black. Here's Cheese Grater Raider.
Hey, what's going on, Q? What's going on, Raider Nation? It's the Cheese Grater Raider. And I was actually just calling to talk about how I think we'll be okay with Geno Smith because, you know, it's not like when he was with the Jets and, you know, he got sucker punched by one of his teammates and then he had a terrible, first 5 years, I don't know how many it was. And then he was going over to Seattle and he had to regain his confidence. We're not getting that version of him. We're getting he's regained the confidence. He feels like he's in command. He sees what he's capable of doing at this level of football, not just collegiate. So I think we'll be all right with him. You know, I've seen a few highlights of him throwing the ball and I mean, like, from a practice standpoint, I think, I don't know if it was I don't think it was, an official practice. It was something unofficial. But he just looks good, man, the way he spins it. And I think we'll be okay, for this year. And then I think next year, I think the plan is to go and get our quarterback next year in a deeper quarterback draft class. So I'm excited for that. But I think we got a really talented young roster, and I think we got the right coaches around to make them better, bring the most out of them. Anyways, Q, I'd like to hear your thoughts, man. Go Raiders.
Thanks so much for the call, my man. And yeah, Geno is not some elite talent, right? But what he is a guy who knows the head coach, and the head coach knows him. He knows the expectations, and Pete knows how to get the most out of Geno, right? When we've seen Geno succeed, it's when Pete Carroll was the head coach, right? He knew how to get him out of a dark place. When he wasn't very successful, when he started doubting himself, Pete Carroll knew how to get him to lift his head up and keep balling. That's the beautiful thing about what Pete Carroll brings to the table. And that's why, one, I think Geno Smith wanted to be a Raider and play under Coach Carroll. And the reason why Coach Carroll wanted Geno Smith to be a Raider and play under him, right? As far as like having an elite back like Genty, that's going to suck up the defense. That play action pass should open up. So now you got Bowers, you got Myers, you got Thornton that can stretch the field, you got Tucker that can stretch the field. Now all of a sudden you've got multiple options. The run game's got to be solid. If the run game is solid and that play action pass works, that makes Geno that much more dangerous. And oh, by the way, Geno could use his legs, and Chip Kelly's offense, I think, is going to have a chance to be very, very innovative, right? You're not getting a Luke Getsy offense. Let's put it like that. You're getting an offense that you feel pretty confident is going to be able to go out there and get as close to possible as to 24 points a game. The Raiders averaged 18.2 last season. There was only like 2 or 3 teams that were worse in the league. I mean, think about that. 2 or 3 teams that were worse than the Raiders as far as points being scored per game. One was the Patriots. I think one was the Giants, and I can't remember who the other one was, but it's not good. Right? There was one team that was at like 15 points per game, whereas the number 1 team in the league was the Detroit Lions at 33. Think about that. The Raiders were at 18. They've got to be at least at 24. 24 points per game would have put them around 10th in the league. That's a big jump from where they were, which was late 20s. That would have put them up around 10, which is where kind of Denver was, around 24 points per game. They need to get at least one more touchdown per game. I think Geno and this offense can do it, especially with Chip Kelly. Thanks so much for that call. Appreciate you. And we'll close out with a text from Trey in Virginia. What's up, Q? Trey from Virginia. I love what the Raiders did in the draft, although I don't understand the quarterback decisions. More importantly, the commercial y'all have been running recently with the dude crunching on the chips infuriates me. I literally want to stop listening altogether when I hear that commercial. Love your show, but for the love of God, please run a different commercial. That's Trey in Virginia. Trey, thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the text. I ain't got no control over the commercials, brother. The commercials have nothing to do with me. I control with what I say in segment 1. I control with what I say in segment 2. I control what I say in segment 3. Outside of that, it's a wrap. Ari doesn't control the commercials either, so there's really nothing that we can do about it. I guess the good thing is you still remember the commercial, so I guess it did its job, but I get it. It happens like that. Sometimes there's commercials that get on people's nerves. I get it, but it's totally out of my hands. I have nothing to do with it at all. I don't even know what commercial you're talking about, so you're better than me. The only commercials I know about are the ones that I read. Right? Monarch Money and FanDuel. Sometimes it's Amazon. Sometimes it's Nissan. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I got control of when it comes to commercials, the ones that I'm talking about. So, I don't know what to say about that, but I am glad that you love what the Raiders did in the draft. That's great. That's a positive, and we'll take a positive. So thanks so much for the text, my man. Definitely appreciate you. Let's go ahead and have a little bit more fun. We'll close out with one more call. This is from Mark from Chicago, calling to talk about the draft, and has a question about what it'll take to get to that wild card spot. Really good call here from Mark from Chicago.
Hey, Q. Big fan of your show. It's Mark calling from Chicago. You have been very consistent with the Raiders' win total, hovering around 8-9 wins. The draft is now in the rearview mirror. I think everybody in Raider Nation is high on how we came out of the draft with 11 picks, and we're able to clear up some questions in the run game. What would you need to see if you were the GM and you're close to the team? What would you need to see in remaining free agency, whether it's another veteran wide receiver, another addition in the secondary, to get us to that wild card spot, which realistically, when we look at the AFC, is probably 10 wins? What would you need to see, Q, if you were in John Spytek's ear on a couple moves we could still make with salary cap flexibility to put the Raiders really in the hunt on paper to be in that wild card call it second place in the AFC West. Appreciate you taking the time. Go Raiders.
Mark in the Shy, thanks so much for the call, and that's a great question. I actually might use this on my radio show later on today. Just saying. And I take the right to do that. But no, really good call. I think the Raiders are in a good spot to be able to compete week in and week out. I think that's realistic, right? It's going to be a relatively young team. That's why I believe 8 wins is fair. That doubles what they did last season. They're a 4-win team. If they get to 8 wins, that doubles it. That shows that they're definitely trending in the right direction. Everything that Pete Carroll and John Spivak are trying to put in place is working. And so that makes sense. Now, what is it going to take to get them to the next step? Go and, maybe get a wild card spot. Like you mentioned, it's going to take probably 10 wins. That's asking a lot. But if they were to do that, I would think that you would have to bring in a couple more veterans. You'd probably have to bring in a Jalen Ramsey, right? You'd have to make a trade for him with the Dolphins, and I don't know what that trade would be, but you'd have to make a trade. You'd have to also give him a contract extension so he could be a guy, if he's locked in and healthy the whole season, he can obviously hold down one side of the field. You would probably have to bring in a veteran wide receiver, maybe a Keenan Allen, maybe an Amari Cooper, so you don't have as much pressure on the young wide receivers. But then you're asking these 2 veterans that are often injured to be healthy as well, right? So a lot of it, get to the next level, it's not just the youth of the team, it's also the health, right? Do the Raiders have the depth to get through an 18-week, 17-game season and win 10 games? Like, that's going to be a big question, right? Is this offense going to understand each other quick enough? Is this offensive line going to come together quick enough? Are they going to gel, right? There's a lot of factors that go into it. I've gone into training camp. I've gone into the regular season with super high expectations, thinking the team was going to do this, that, and the other, and was completely wrong. So I've learned from that, and I'm trying not to make that same mistake. So, again, if I look at 8 wins in year 1 with Pete Carroll, that's similar to what Sean Payton did in Denver, I think that that's fair. And it tells you that, hey, man, this team is going exactly where it needs to go. 8 wins in year 1, great. Now what do? Come back. Do they get another solid draft class? Do they get more free agency? Some good, solid players in free agency? How do they build on that? That's what I think is realistic. It could always happen. We saw Jim Harbaugh get double-digit wins and get the Chargers into the playoffs year 1. We saw 3 out of 4 teams from the AFC West go to the playoffs, but I just don't want to put those lofty goals out there or expectations or even sell it like that's what's going to happen, because I don't want to set anybody up for failure, including myself. So I think it's a really good question. Like I said, I'll probably use it on my radio show later on this afternoon. So thank you for that. I'll give you the feedback. I'll tell you what everyone says about it, what their overall thoughts were on that. And then we'll go from there. So thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Got a text from Raider Dan in Rochester. Raider Eddie in Denver has a lengthy call. And then JB in the 559, got a text from him. We'll get that on tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes. We'll continue to deep dive into the Raider draft picks as we did today with wide receiver Jack Bech. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.